my name is David Carter, and I live near Spencer on a farm. Have been there for 38 years, and was taking a barn apart in West Terre Haute, and part of the barn fell on me unexpectedly, and in 1975, and I've been paralyzed ever since. When in 1989, the powers that be in Bloomington learned that the ADA was going to be passed, probably, they knew, the legal department knew, that one of the components of all civil rights law is adapt, the way they phrased it was nothing about us without us. And they knew that there was going to be this component of getting input from people with disabilities. And so they quite sagely convened a group that was sort of half people with disabilities and people who worked with disabilities, people from the disability agencies and things like that, and half city employees in related areas, public works, the legal department, and like that. And we anticipated the passage of the ADA by, let's see, we first met in October of '89. The Community Council for Handicap Concerns, it was called, and met monthly for a year or so, and weren't really getting anywhere. We said what we thought, and the city people said, well, you can't do that. Why not? Well, we haven't ever done it that way. And it was the sort of typical bureaucracy versus advocacy situation. And then all of a sudden, this remarkable person named Kristen Willison showed up in Bloomington, having just moved to Bloomington from Louisville. Her daughter has cerebral palsy, and she was involved in getting her daughter into the school system and all those sort of typical things that people, one of the main ways that people get involved in disabilities if they aren't a person with a disability themselves. But she was really interested in making conditions better for everybody, not just solving her particular problem. And in no time at all, she basically took over the whole group, and we started actually doing things. The first month she came, she introduced herself and all that. The second month, she actually had an agreement with Hall Signs in Bloomington that if people would buy the handicap parking sign, they would install it free. I mean, here's an accomplishment. 1 month into her thing. We'd been meeting for a year or so and really hadn't gotten much of anything done. And so we said, okay, how about you chair our group? And she did most of the work herself. She did a lot of behind-the-scenes calling, and she took on Indianapolis Airport. She took on Riley Hospital. Her daughter had a service dog, and Riley Hospital wouldn't let the service dog in. And so she whipped, by then the ADA was passed, so she whipped out the ADA and gave them hell, and won, of course, because she was right. And she, in addition to helping us achieve good things, she also taught us how to be good negotiators, how to achieve things on our own. And in another year or so, my name came up when the Indiana Civil Rights Commission needed a person with a disability. The ADA was passed. They said, we have an opening. We need to fill that slot with someone with a disability or someone with disability interests. And through some mysterious way, I don't know how quite, I was suggested, and I've been on the commission since '91. The ADA really has changed things, even though there is a lot of inaccessibility still, and a lot of small rural towns, Spencer being one of them, where things haven't been made accessible the way they were supposed to. But people are still trying. Sometimes they're very trying because they don't do it right. They invent, the ADA has perfectly good specifications for parking, and there's an incredible creativity when it comes to handicap parking and how they do the access aisles and the state parking garages by the government center here. They have a parking space that says, restricted parking or whatever with a wheelchair symbol, and then the access aisle, it says accessible aisle. Accessible aisle doesn't mean anything, to anyone. It's a phrase. And then this whole business of the blue stripes, where you're not supposed to park, and there is frequently someone parked on the blue stripe thing, even though if it were yellow stripes, everybody knows that means don't park here. But the blue stripes somehow make it, this is where people with disabilities are supposed to park. So you come back to your van and there's a car parked right up against it. I've actually had somebody park against my open lift. But those kinds of things to the side, I think there is a general consciousness now that people with disabilities do have rights, and that sometimes those rights involve the physical reality that we all live in. From my wheelchair point of view, obviously from the point of view of someone with mental health issues or with developmental cognitive issues, that's not as easy to see, the dividing line between doing it right and not doing it right. But the fact that there is this idea, however misunderstood sometimes, that you can make the world a better place for people with disabilities for whom there are obstacles all over the place. Just not adding to those obstacles is a great accomplishment, I think, for the ADA. That it certainly changed. It helps change from that attitude that John Hockenberry describes in his book of putting the person in the family with a disability away, hiding him away in shame. And that people with disabilities are now able to go up and down the street. Getting over the perception that there's something wrong with people with disabilities, I always dredge up Stephen Hawking. I mean, here's a man whose body is, for all practical purposes, not even functioning, except on the most basic level. And he's solving problems that Einstein gave up on. Who wouldn't hire him? And not only that, but he's been on Star Trek and The Simpsons. The measure of a great man, right? But the perception that it's expensive, of course, is dispelled by a whole raft of statistics out of the federal government that, something like 75% of the accommodations that an employer would have to make cost under $50. That's and once a person with a disability is trained, how expensive is it to train another person compared with making these small accommodations, assuming a person developed a disability while they were working there. But it's like there's this artificial barrier between what people are willing to do under some circumstances and not under others.